Mulchmart. They're looking for an amended site plan. I'll tell you how we got to this point. Years ago, he had a site plan that was voted on and approved that way, but he never got it signed because of a dispute with the town about whether or not all the charges he was being hit with were justified. Anyhow, for that reason, he never got things signed, and therefore he never had a signed site plan. So this is taking it more back to there, but the county has an amended site plan. So that's what is happening now. He's doing an amended site plan. I think that basically he's not proposing anything new other than what's existing on the property line.
These are two separate lots?
They were.
You know what,
Yeah.
they were at planning last meeting, and do you want, I'll just give
Go
you a
ahead.
rundown
Yeah.
of what we did. You know, it wasn't privileged, but I did listen in, took notes. So, Mulchmart had a session with planning, and Frank Leva, he's buildings supervisor of the buildings department. He agrees that the site is pre-existing non-conforming, and when you look at things like parking in front of the building, etc., at least for the last 25 years, it has existed this way. There was some talk about the storage bins along 17M, and since they used to be cars and trailer sales, again, pre-existing non-conforming. They talked a bit about the house on Fisher Lane and the fact that it's too close to the road. Again, pre-existing non-conforming. If anybody wants to jump in while I'm going, otherwise I'll just go and get through to the end. One thing that kind of got stuck on is the need for a waiver for green space. Our town code says that 30% of the lot has to be green space. According to Jim Dillon, he was the presenter, the most he's going to be able to get is 20%. And there is a watershed on 17M, and we see that on the plans here, this small shed. That is a structure in the setback, and going to need, it is pre-existing non-conforming. On the lots, this is not just a site plan, but it's also a lot merger. And these two lots, there's a front lot and a rear lot. You can see the line on the plan there. The front light's highway commercial, the rear is mixed-use commercial. This lot has already been merged. It just hasn't shown up on the records yet. They do that in May, Jim said. So it has been merged. At the there was a March 25 meeting, and it was discussed, as Neil was saying, that there was a 2011 plan that were approved by the board, but never signed. For what reason, they didn't go into, but they were never signed. And so that plan has expired. Back to the vacant house on Fisher, it is not being used, and there are no plans to use it. And if the applicant wants to use it in the future, it was said he'd need to go back to the building department to do that. So as of now, I don't see that it's a concern. Outdoor storage. Now, to our code, it has to be less than 10% and it must be screened. This was waived in 2011 by the board. Once again, it expired. So I can imagine they'd have to waive it again, and I don't see why they wouldn't. There are 4 entrances to the lot, which the planning board wants referred to the highway department. Sounds good. Fire code issues.
The entrances are where, off of Fisher? Or?
Yeah, everything's off of Fisher. 1, 2, three,
And 4.
Yeah. Yep.
So
What else is up, what's up here that would be conflict with all these 4 lots?
I think it's just a traffic issue, and I think normally, you know, if you're gonna have entrances to lots, they have to be curb cuts, they have to be so many feet apart from each other. You know, you've merged 2 lots here, so I think it's just a matter of, it's a little bit messy, and the highway department needs to chime in to say what's doable and what's not.
Do they still use Fisher Lane to get into the
Site center.
site center?
Not the psych center, but there are some houses up Fisher.
Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's 4 houses on Fisher Lane.
Really? Not including,
Not including this one. There's 1 here, 1 here, 1 over here, and then 1 way back here.
is there any commercial use on the other side of Fisher?
No.
Well, over here
Oh,
is
yeah.
what was the Cancun Inn. Last I knew, owned by the county.
No, Cancun Inn is owned by Nick's Concrete.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, they did buy it.
Yeah.
So it is an open lot right now, because they leveled the building some years ago, but it is owned by Dick's Concrete. And it is highway commercial.
Right, and then Dick's Concrete owns this part here, this parcel here too. That they were taking material out of there for a while, and in fact, the weird thing, the interesting thing is that this stretch of Fisher Lane is concrete.
Really?
It was made concrete when Dick's Concrete came in to get that approved for there.
Decided to.
And the town said, look, you're gonna destroy the road otherwise, so put concrete instead of blacktop. And since Dick's Concrete makes concrete, that was a relatively easy ask.
Good.
So that's what did happen.
There's a fire code issue, and let me come back to it, because
Okay.
that's one we're gonna have to talk about. The bins that are along 17M, it was discussed that they were allowed in the setback because they are for material storage. The shed, there's a shed on Fisher that's on this plan right there,
Yep.
that is in the setback, and it is said that the applicant will remove that. That's what was said at the meeting. However, again, the shed on 17M, as they discussed it, would need a variance, even though it's pre-existing non-conforming. There was just some discussion in the meeting on that. Sidewalk waiver. Everybody needs a sidewalk waiver, right? Because there's nothing down there. That's something that we're gonna have to discuss. For everyone's information, Chapter 28 of the New York State Fire Code concerns mulch flammability and fire apparatus accessibility. Mr. Leva is in charge of enforcing those regulations, and he will be having a meeting with the applicant to get that squared away. There's no mulch dyeing on the site, make colored mulch. There was some discussion about the mafia blocks on the right side of the property, those spaced apart, and the question was, why are they there?
Oh, here.
Yeah, Mr. Dillon didn't answer that, but it's to keep trucks from rolling off the yard into the culvert, right? I mean, that makes sense to me, and I actually see them being functional, and they should be there. Well and septic locations, the well is in the middle of the property, and yeah, so it's kind of tucked there in the middle, and then it was said, Mr. Dillon thought that the water ran to that shed. This is a all-season frost-proof water supply source there. Some of the board members were questioning about removing that shed. Was it functional? I haven't spoken to the applicant, but I do believe that it's probably operational in that, you can use it to water down the yard, you can use it to water down mulch piles. Again, it's been there forever, and it is pre-existing non-conforming. I think the variance should be,
Also, you could put out a fire, maybe,
have something there,
Has he
right?
ever had a history of a problem?
Not that I remember, but trucks, they come in, right? Brakes are hot. If anything else, just to be able to put some water on a brake, right? You could take a very small problem, make it go away quickly, as opposed to letting it get out of hand.
Yeah.
The planning board took lead agency, and they've requested the Part 2 EAF to be prepared. There's no public hearing on this until the fire code discussion is had with the buildings department. So, I think, so from the environmental point of it, there were a couple things in here that jumped out at me. That green space waiver. And Neil, maybe you can tell us, when they say green space, are we talking about grass? Are we talking about?
Yeah, they're talking about grass, basically what we normally, something that grows. It is not just because it's pervious.
So it has to be planted?
It's generally considered to be planted of some sort, yes. It could be naturally, it doesn't have to be lawn, it can be meadows or something, pasture, anything, but I believe it's always been something that's growing as opposed to just having pervious surface.
So knowing the yard, and look, we've all been, if not at the yard, we've been past it so many times, I have. When you're talking about, he's running heavy equipment, front end loaders, dump trucks, small loaders, it's almost impossible to grow grass because, this stuff just tramples down absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Mr. Dillon said that he thought that they could squeeze out 20% of the lot in green space, but getting to 30% would be difficult, if not impossible.
In most of that area, would be up in here probably?
Yeah, well, some of it may be. The biggest part that I would recognize right now as being green space would be the part along 17M, in front of these bins. That whole area is, there's grass and mowed, and it has green space here, not as thick, not as wide, along the road there.
Okay.
It's probably 10 or 15 feet wide there at the most. This out here, I think, is probably closer to 25.
The other thing is that, you know, this ties in with the mulch piles. This is the mulch is seasonal, right? This time of the year, everybody's buying mulch, he's gotta bring in huge mulch and stack it high, right? As the season goes on, he doesn't sell as much mulch, those piles get smaller, and that actually opens up green space. So the green space is fluid on this property, and I think that sometimes he may be over 30%. You know, when you do away with the mulch piles in the back,
Yeah.
that's half the property's opened up. I have not spoken to the applicant. I would like maybe some more clarification on that, just to, if this is a flex lot, if you will, in that by the very nature of the business,
Yeah.
these piles grow and shrink throughout the year. So I don't know how really important that 30% is, especially if you can get 20 sometimes, 40 the other. Give me an average, something along those lines. If you simply can't make the 30%, then a variance to be issued, you'd have to go to the ZBA.
Without knowing what they're asking for, because I read this as maximum impervious surface. And so if it's pervious surface versus impervious surface, that's one thing. Open space is another thing.
He actually, Sean Hoffman, the town engineer, did clarify that impervious surface is not green space. He said that this lot completely complies with impervious surface requirements. It was the difference between what's impervious and what's green.
Right.
And that's why I was asking you,
Yeah.
disagree? I mean, if you can just let a field go natural, you can just let the field go natural, but now, you know, if you put a mulch pile on it for a month, now the mulch pile is gone, well, yeah, it's not green, but it'll come back. It's a very fluid.
Well, that's gonna be a frank interpretation.
And that is, part of that, dovetail into the next part, was this, on the fire code issue, the pile dimensions. Mulch by our code, for 1.5 times the height is the setback, okay? So if the pile is 20 feet high, it needs to be 35 feet away from anything else. 1.5 times the height is the setback.
30 feet back, yeah.
30, okay.
Yep.
So, once again, these are fluid piles, right? They're big when they get offloaded, and then they shrink down. Also, in the back here, he has road piles. I have seen them rowed at times. And how does that, if he were to just row them, do them in long rows instead of a conical pile, right? So if it's, okay, it's 20 feet high and he just needs that 30 or 35 feet off of all the sides, you know, he might be in compliance.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things that come into play, and I think that the fire code is probably the most strict or whatever, and then that sort of deals with the maximum height you can have, and I thought it was more than 20 feet, but whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm not saying that that's the maximum, I'm saying they gave the example of.
Yeah, and so there is a thing in between there, it has to be, and you can only go so wide, and then in between you have to be able to be driven. Right, may have to have the fire truck to go down there.
And that was another thing that they mentioned in the meeting. Once again, it's fluid. There are times where, you know, when you just offload for a few days, it's gonna be tighter, but as that pile comes down, and he does keep a very neat yard, right? As they've been digging into the pile all day long, they restack for the next day, and it's to his benefit because it makes it easier to load, etc. Another thing on the fire code, and speaking of fire in particular, mulch, and I've been to mulch fires as a fireman, mulch doesn't so much burn as it smolders, right? It's a very damp material. It's a lot of moisture in this mulch pile, which is one of the reasons that it breaks down into mulch. The little microbes and stuff, their body heat makes it hot. And if you let it sit long enough, then you can have a spontaneous combustion. Sitting long enough is the key component here. The applicant's piles move almost constantly, right? It's very rare that a pile sits there for, weeks. This is what he does, he sells. Once you dig into it, you cool the pile down. And, but I do think that if the buildings department felt better about it to say, pile must be turned every so many weeks, or something along those lines, which,
I think the DEC actually says that too.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I think the DEC says that, yep.
And
And I think we have to differentiate here between piles here and then that pile in the back.
Well-
There's two different kinds of piles he has.
so are you two different materials or two different stocks?
I'd say two different materials.
Okay,
This, back there is never mulch. Back there is wood chip.
okay,
Stuff coming in, most of the time it's stuff coming in, just chipped up by a chipper out in the field somewhere. It comes into there, and it sits there until he needs it for mulch, in which case it's reground or whatever, and he now makes it mulchy, it has to find. And that, which also impacts how tall the pile's allowed to be.
all right, does he doesn't grind on site, does he? I don't remember seeing a grinder.
I don't know, I thought he may.
My understanding is that the wood chips were for like horse bedding. There's a different reason for the wood chips.
The wood, I can tell you that I gotten wood chips from them, and they're not pretty.
Okay, what do you?
I mean, I'm talking,
Twigs.
I'm saying, maybe a branch, not very long, but I've gotten branches,
What do-
I'm talking 2-inch material. It's not gonna be stuff that you put, around your house.
Right, that's mulch.
Stuff around the house is mulch, and I think that everything you see up front here is mulch. Okay, I think that really is, I think the 4 or 5 piles he has here are mulch. I think that what's in back there is wood chip.
Okay.
I could be right or wrong, I haven't gone back there lately, I do know that I have gotten wood chip from him, for the back part of my property.
Does he dye anything?
Not that I know of.
No, he does not do any dyeing on property.
Good.
So he probably buys it already dyed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he does that, I know
So
he
this
buys.
is a separate product, it's not something he sends out to become mulch?
Correct. Well, that's my understanding, is that the wood chip is for horse bedding and mulch is for decorative, around the house. So,
Yeah, definitely the mulch is not meant for horse bedding and that, and then I really think that, I'm not sure where that goes, I'm not sure where that all goes. Some of that I think may go shipped out to people who make wood pellets too.
oh, okay. So,
So fire-wise, is wood chip different?
Yeah, fire-wise, you give them more leeway with wood chip. It's less likely to build up heat inside, so
Oh.
consequently, they allow you to go higher and possibly wider also. I'm gonna, and don't hold me numbers, I think 25 foot might be the maximum height for wood chip, and for mulch it might be 15 or 20.
So, the other thing that, and again, when looking at the ability to move an apparatus around the yard, I've been in the yard a number of times, and they drive dump trucks through there all the time. So I've never seen a time where you could not access the entire yard with an apparatus. The only question is if you do have, if he has big mulch piles this time of year on this side of the yard, the right side of the yard, it's accessible from the mental health center on the other. It's an open field, park the rig on 17M, and you can reach the yard that way.
Yeah.
So there's nothing in there that's so confined you can't get to it.
Yeah, I agree. And he routinely drives tractor trailers
Yes.
and straight bodies and everything else through there around the yard. He has to make it around his own yard with his tractor trailers. He has, I'm gonna say 6 trailers there.
Mhm.
That he's sending out every day. So getting around his yard and even getting to the back with trailers is very doable. If for no other reason than he wants it doable for himself.
And the last thing was the sidewalk waiver, which seems to be the bane of our existence on every application. It was mentioned in the meeting, That, you know, there's nowhere to go left or right. And it was said, though, that if we keep saying that, right, nobody will ever put a sidewalk in, because somebody has to at some point. Now, my issue is that on 17M, we've seen the bins full of material along 17M. Right after the bin is a culvert that has to be cleared, it has to stay cleared, it's for water removal, and this is required by the state, and the applicant mows it and keeps it clear, which is, that's great, the state's not paying for it. However, it is always wet, and I just went past it today, and I just don't see where he can put a sidewalk in. It's just, I'm not sure if it's physically possible without having to, I didn't see it. That's gonna be on planning as to whether or not they're going to require that or force a variance. They can waive it. Or the bike path, right? They've done this before where you don't have to put something, you know, we're not talking concrete, just something that somebody can walk on.
I think that waiver thing or whatever has been for a while, the planning board was doing that, and then at some point in time, our attorney at that point, Kelly Norton, was of the opinion that to waive something like that is not within the realm of the authority of the planning board, nor the ZBA to give a variance for that.
How could the ZBA can't variance that?
No, the ZBA, the ZBA can generally do an area variance,
Yeah.
which deals with numbers,
Yep.
or a use variance.
Well, that's a whole different. That's
Right,
hard.
yes it is. So that's the only two things they really can decide on, or interpretation they can do.
Well, I mean, we've got an applicant right now, a warehouse that wants a variance from the sidewalk and,
Yeah, and I think that you really technically can't do that,
okay.
unless you make an interpretation somehow that that's not what it means.
Okay,
So
well.
it's not an area variance, so it's either, so,
From my perspective, as an ERB member, I like a sidewalk around the commercial properties because it's a visual to me. It's inviting, I think it adds to the view shed, and I like it. Looking at this property, and I looked at it today, and was kind of tilted my head and say, gee, I just don't know how we can put a sidewalk in here, because it's all that culvert, and it's wet. So, I mean, and the applicant is not allowed to construct anything in that setback. He's been told by the state, you keep that clear.
So that means they'd have to go into where the mulch pot or the storage.
If the planning board is gonna make him move his entire yard that way, now.
so I think this is where it really comes down to. But certainly it says that the deed line is right here. If the deed line is your front property line,
Yep.
then 35 feet back, which is the front yard setback here, seems to be falling somewhere less than at the bins. 1 inch equals 30. I think that from here to there, to that block is more than 1 inch.
So you think I
think those bins are outside of the setback,
okay,
as defined in the code.
okay.
Okay, it's not 35 feet from the side of the road, I don't, maybe, but I don't know that to be true.
Well, if that's the case, then would he have room to put a sidewalk in? That he would not be in the,
I think that if you look at the site, there is grass between the block and the culvert.
yeah, but
It's sloped.
Yeah, it's sloped and it's about this much, and it's always soaking wet.
I am not denying, but I know he mows it. And look, I know full well he's gonna tell me to go to hell, but. All right, but, I mean, friend or not, he absolutely does not believe in sidewalks anywhere along the commercial area. Though exactly what you said, if you don't put one in, you're not gonna connect to the other.
Right.
I 100% agree with that, and ultimately, sooner or later, it may make sense that you can walk from the psych center down, except that we're never gonna make the psych center put it in, but they might do it on their own goodwill or whatever at some point.
You're saying we don't have the authority?
We have no authority to tell them to.
Or if
Okay.
if they sell that off.
If they sold it off privately, then we wouldn't do that, in which case, having
Yeah,
at some point in time, it may make sense to have a bus stop there or something else like that. It may make sense for some reason to go there.
yeah.
We did make,
It There's a bus stop on the other side though, right?
Yep, and now we did make, what's his name, did that for the motorcycle shop, where he put a sidewalk out there and he ended up using it for display purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And I would, just for the record, if anybody cares, I actually like sidewalks, even in the industrial. However, and I've said this many times, the zoning board of appeals is there when your site has a unique property that makes complying with the code impossible or impractical, a variance should be issued. And I hate variances, I do. I'm saying, I looked at this one today and I was kind of dumbfounded, like, wow, I just don't know how the town can ask or force to put a sidewalk in when it's, just doesn't have the property. You're looking at it, you got it.
Yeah, I went to,
That's correct.
Yeah.
When they wanted to have
apple
trees and stuff.
because you
here.
did three
Now,
days, so I was hoping.
But let's talk trees now, okay? There's a difference there.
That is just a culvert, is the
Yeah,
issue.
I
That is
think-
such
I
a
think-
culvert.
Let me see if I can get that.
So at the last time he was in front of us, there was a requirement by the planning board that he put trees in, I'm gonna say,
Someplace there.
I'm gonna say, right at the property, at the setback line from, the front of his yard.
Right.
In which case, at that point, if you take his setback line and went back there, it would be very close to being, I believe, right in the culvert. And he did go to the DOT, and I went to the DOT because I never take anybody's word for anything.
Right.
And so I did go to the DOT, talked to Kim Hankins, and at that point in time, Kim Hankins made it very plain, no, she does not want trees at the culvert, at the line, at the,
Right.
where the culvert, not the culvert, the trench ditches. She didn't want,
So they couldn't see or whatever?
no, she did, it was too close to the road, edge of the road, and made it dangerous that people start hitting these trees, they do not want it right there.
Mm-hmm.
So they did not want it where we were telling them to do it, which was at the setback line, from his property line to his setback, which would have been,
The other concern I have is he's scooping materials out there, you don't want a sidewalk too close to his,
yep,
that could be a real
Mhm.
safety concern.
yep, so that is, we should say that. So anyhow, that was it, and so the trees were not, the DOT did not want, and does not want the trees at the 35-foot setback from the property line.
There is another issue there, and it is outdoor storage, right? Outdoor storage. It's only allowed in the side and rear yards and not more than 10%, must be screened. It was waived in 2011. That's section 97-14 sub D sub 5. So normally this yard would have to be screened, but it was waived, and one of the reasons it was waived is because in this section it says that if it is a part of the business to show your wares, if you will, and it specifically says outdoor sculptures, auto dealerships, nurseries. Okay, they don't say mulch yard, but I take this to be just that type of business where the product needs to be on display as part of the business. So I didn't see screening this in any way, not including trees, etc. So that was my 2 cents on that.
And we also had that kind of an issue with nurseries and that kind of thing, where people display, that has been, we could take the place right across the way, except the pre-existing non-conforming, with all the sheds.
The sheds.
Right,
Yeah.
and you could actually say that was solid, and again, all these guys are pre-existing non-conforming, I'm not pointing them out as a violation, but I'm saying that that's that traditional look up and down that roadway.
Yes. And if,
And Hilly's the same way.
same thing.
Yeah.
And if an applicant were coming and saying, we're building this new place and this is what it's gonna be, no, you're not getting, I would say you're not gonna get through because you have to meet the codes. In this case, you have an applicant who has been in business 25 years and,
Same location.
Yeah,
and
same
you're a
location,
responsible
doing-
business owner.
yeah, doing the same thing. And, you know, I call this a legacy property, when it's been doing this and it's been used for car sales, RV sales, and then Mulchmart took over, so,
Okay, so outdoor storage of materials, equipment, or vehicles, and this is 9714 D5 probably.
Mhm.
Forestry, materials, equipment or vehicles in an orderly manner is permitted in any area other than the required front, rear, or side yards. So if the storage of this material is outside of the required front yard, and the required front yard is 35 feet back from your setback of 35 feet from your property line. And it has to be, provided that such does not exceed 10% of the area, is effectively screened from public weather. This 10% limitation may be waived by the planning board in the course of site plan review for those uses which by their nature require outdoor storage of materials or product such as nurseries, lumberyards, outdoor sculptures, galleries, automobile dealers. Somebody has to make a determination as to whether or not mulch and stone and that, by historically, whatever, naturally have it stored outside. I don't know of anybody who sells bulk mulch from inside of the building, but,
Neither do I. They're always outside, and
and same thing goes with stone and whatever else.
actually, and that's a fire hazard to put it inside and leave it inside stacked up. That's
Because
why
it
you want it
certainly-
outside.
It certainly becomes more of an issue, right?
Right. Again, all of this was waived in 2011. I would ask the planning board to waive it again. It wasn't signed, so nothing's really changed. I'm sorry, the lot line has changed, and he's added some stuff to the back, but the whole front of the property is essentially the same as it was.
And the other, so the screening requirement may be waived where it would prevent the necessary display of merchandise for public viewing, provided that they find that the display is done in an orderly and attractive. I don't know that we've ever had a complaint about this not being orderly and attractive. Frank would know what's inside that, whether he's gotten complaints.
All I know is I was new to the area, and that's where I got my mulch. 'Cause I didn't want
I think almost everybody does. You can get it in almost any kind of way you want it. You can get it in bulk bags, big bags, super sacks, whatever.
So,
Whatever.
Neil, just from my notes,
Yep.
going back to the green space, 30% required, only 20% available for truly green space. I believe that the mulch piles flex that percentage throughout the season, and that should be taken into account. And it should be, I'd like to see it waived by the planning board, because sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Outdoor storage, you just hit on, I think this does fall under 9714 sub D sub 5, and that this is necessary to store his materials outside. The watershed variance that they were talking about in planning board, that I do believe that frost-proof water source there, that shed on 17M, should be allowed to stay, as it is a functional part of the yard. It does very good for quick water should they need it for a truck, and again, I'm thinking about breaks coming in, or if a mulch pile needs a little bit of water on it to knock something down, although I've never heard of a problem on the yard. The sidewalk waiver tears me because I like sidewalks. I just think that this property has a unique feature that makes putting a sidewalk in impractical. Just don't have the room for it, and short of, as John said, moving the entire yard, which I don't think is practical. So a variance or a waiver for the sidewalk. Those were my notes.
I think the other thing about, I think it would be even harder to get a sidewalk on Fisher Lane, which we've ignored so far. And on top of that, if you looked at this property, it's all sidewalk otherwise. We have 2 front yards. It would be an absurd amount of sidewalk.
Wait, it's considered a corner lot.
So I have 2 front yards.
Yes.
And 2 front yards and 1 side yard.
Does our code say that you have to sidewalk the 2 front yards, or can you sidewalk just one?
I don't know. I would see very little reason why the sidewalk on Fisher Lane. Pardon?
No, I believe you would choose.
You would choose?
No, because like mole rats,
Yep.
they would choose which one.
Well, they're saying, Mole Rats is saying because they're using Jessup Switch as the front yard. They're calling that the front yard. And there was a
So
question,
you have to call one in the front yard, basically.
well, they were questioning, was it considered a corner lot? And because he does have property that goes all the way to Pumpkin Swamp, but that's,
It's kind of, the question there should almost be whether that interior road or interior driveway becomes a new roadway or a new front. That's almost where the question should be.
right,
If that was to be a new road for the town, then that would make another front yard.
no, yeah, but that's all on his property, that's
I know it is, but
his access.
right, but now he may have a private road, because that roadway is now serving 2 other warehouses also.
It's not, they're not gonna break it through,
They're not gonna go through the other ones?
no, it's gonna be gated.
Okay, didn't want to bring up a whole other problem.
I know,
All right, all right, all right.
thank you.
Good.
But it was a good point, and, well, okay, so talking about Fisher then, if something has to go in, I think a bike path or a non-paved, not a cement walk, but
We,
something there, but then, now again, we've got 4 entrances
and I can tell you that in the past, we have accepted mulch or wood chips or something being an acceptable surface for a walkway. I don't know that I like that answer, but that, we have done that. So the way it reads is a continuous green landscape buffer shall be maintained along the road, just the road, consisting of trees, shrubs, fields, meadows, natural areas, and lawn. Okay, so the separate green landscape area is only there, the separate green landscape area is not the rest of the yard. So I think that question about whether the mulch piles or the chip piles or the wood chips, whether that is there all the time or not there all the time, if that's not along the road, then I don't think it's required to be green space.
Mhm.
It's required not to be pervious,
Right,
or not to be impervious, I'm sorry, it's required not to be impervious, which means that if it's not impervious, then it meets that 30%.
okay,
I think, where I'm reading is, whatever, 9714, D, landscape, 3A, consisting of trees, okay, provided that such buffer vegetation does not interfere with the required site distances. And then it says, bike paths or sidewalks shall be constructed within this landscape buffer. To the extent practical, existing trees, lawns, and shrubs shall be preserved.
okay, on that point, talking about 17M first, can't put trees in there, they don't want trees in there. Can't build anything in there, it's a state right of way, they need that for 17M for water removal, for stormwater.
Sure, the
Okay.
ditch is theirs,
And it has to be kept green, and that's done. He keeps it green, he keeps it mowed.
yes.
And I actually think it looks
It's
really
better
good.
than many,
Yeah, looks good.
yes.
Now, on Fisher, and honestly, I've never really gone past the first gate, I don't know what's up the rest of the road. But if planning says he has to put something in, and it could be put in on Fisher, once again, nobody's going to use it, but that's not really the,
I mean, right now on Fisher, I think that there's a ditch right along the side of the road, and then right on the other side of the ditch is existing vegetation, existing trees or whatever.
okay?
I think he would, to get a sidewalk there or a bike path there, he would have to cut down trees and shrubs and whatever. I think he's got,
Which they don't want to do, you wanna
I
keep
mean,
it.
that's, you would really have to do that, to make that work there. And that's why I think actually, I think that to some degree, they have done that, he has planted more vegetation there now. I think we're seeing curly willows or whatever they're called.
Okay,
So I think that, I think it's gonna be, one or the other. I think maybe you can do 17, but you can't do, or 17, but you can't do Fisher Lane without destroying a lot of what we normally would try to do. And I would rather keep all the plantings there, particularly the
Yes.
stuff that's, because if I have any concern for the residential on the other side, the plantings are much better.
give them screening, absolutely,
Yeah.
better than a sidewalk.
Screening and it meets the street trees and everything, it's even stronger than street trees.
I mean, I think what I'm hearing you say is, things are good the way they are.
I think along Fisher Lane, look, 17M is gorgeous looking.
He can't change 17M even if we told him to. The state
He
says no.
cannot do it as far as planting trees where
Yeah,
we normally tell him to plant trees.
so there's nothing there. So what I'm saying is if Fisher is good now, and we can only make it worse by putting a sidewalk in, don't put a sidewalk in. And he can't do anything on 17M. The state says you can't build in it. So you had a question as to just how far that setback goes, but according to this plan here, the setback is,
Yeah, except that it's, you look here, it's,
look on the third page.
yeah. See, I'm looking here and I'm looking.
Look on the third page.
I don't have a third page.
You do.
Do I have-
Look at that setback.
Go another page.
Yeah, and that was, I know that was a bone of contention. That was a,
Well, then that's gotta go back to planning, and that's gotta go back to
And, yeah.
buildings to decide where that line is. I can't
yeah.
comment
No,
anymore.
I agree. I think that the question is, what's the definition of setback say? And I think this does say from the
Okay,
property line.
all right, how do you feel, anybody else got something on this project? 'Cause I think we talked it out pretty good.
So is anybody else on either side of Louis here gonna have to put in a sidewalk, I mean?
Going this way, we have where the Cancun used to be.
Yeah,
Then we have some outdoor furniture place, so
yeah,
nothing. And then after that, I think you go down, drop down into the river.
what house, yeah, she just,
Okay.
yeah.
But the outdoor furniture place is gonna have the very same part, the problem most part has, the state won't let you put anything
Yeah,
in there.
and they have even less room. They're right up there, and they can park 2 vehicles there or something like that.
I think what I'm saying is that our code is being overwritten by the state. Even though we want it, the state's saying, you're not putting anything that close to 17M, and all of the buildings that are already pre-existing there are already too close. That outdoor furniture
Going that
place,
way, absolutely.
it's right there, it's nothing you can do. Now, 17M Flex Building, nothing in that field. So that field, that you can build back here and put a sidewalk in, that can be done.
Yeah,
That's new construction. This is pre-existing
And this would make a lot more sense if the psych center was gonna put one in.
also.
yeah,
Because he butts up right to the psych center.
Yeah.
From there, psych center, he got all the way down to River Road is basically state property. And even though, and I did speak to DOT, even though DOT talks about having complete roads, meaning bikeways or sidewalks, they have no intention of doing that at 17M.
Yeah.
So the state, and maybe that's the criteria, is that maybe somebody from the town or somebody from, somebody should go to DOT and say, does it make sense to require a bike lane here?
Okay.
because you don't want somebody to make somebody put in one here and nobody else puts
Especially
one.
if the state's saying we don't want it.
Yeah.
And maybe the state doesn't even want a bike lane there, so it might be a shared roadway, I think, but anyhow. What I told him it's gonna be short, most of it. Okay, anything else on it?
So as it is now, he may need a variance then, or?
I don't know,
Just-
its interpretation is all over the place.
I'm now told that there's a culvert on Fisher Lane,
Okay,
so that now you,
well, yeah, I think that's probably true,
So
okay?
that-
This culvert right here.
The Mulchmark
Yep.
side is what it looked like on the map. On the
Yeah.
Mulchmark side of Fisher.
Yeah.
There's a culvert.
so then we're, again, leave
Yeah,
it.
no, I think Fisher's shot, there's no way you can do that there.
I mean, unless you wanna force the guy to redo his whole lot, which seems,
See, and that's where we get into that pre-existing non-conforming. If it was a new construction, the town can, absolutely, but when you get into, you're gonna start, what are they, financial burden
oh, yeah.
to the, it has to be considered, and to what end and for what? The benefit to the applicant versus the detriment to the neighborhood is what we look at.
Right, which is under 9714D.
Mhm.
All new development shall comply with the following design standards. Where alterations to existing structures and business operations require a special permit or site plan approval, they shall comply with these standards to the extent practical. I.e., full compliance shall not be required if it would impose unnecessary economic hardship or discourage property owners from improving their properties. The overall design goal is to maintain and enhance the landscape character of commercial road corridors.
Yeah, I don't see sidewalks for this.
And I like sidewalks. I just think this property has unique characteristics that don't allow it, is what I'm saying. Anyway, you had my
Yep.
points there. I hope we get them to planning.
Okay, anything else?
Nope.
Good, thank you. All right, Salamone, you wanna start out with Salamone from the other night, or?
Salamone was also on the planning board agenda the other night. I attended the meeting once again. They came to the planning board for a negative declaration. There was some talk starting out about the traffic studies from John Canning. He's the Goshen traffic consultant. And he has made a recommendation on traffic. If you'll remember, the concern is that going from Goshen to Middletown, you come up over the hill 17M, making the left onto Musket Court. Do you know where we are?
Yeah.
Got it. The state says you should have a left turning lane there. And the state has no plans on doing that anytime soon. Okay. So in order to mitigate the traffic problem of trucks making that left-hand turn in, they suggest that the trucks continue down all the way to the intersection of Lower Road and 17 and make the left onto Lower Road, and then make that next left onto, forget the name.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Whatever it is, that little road.
Yep.
That little road takes you around down next to the forest, and you're heading down the hill, and then you make a right onto 17M. Now the trucks go all the way back up 17M, and they make the right onto Musket Court, which is supposed to be faster and safer. I was not here for, I believe, the February meeting, where Town of Wayanda Supervisor Denise Quinn
Yep.
attended the meeting. My understanding, she made the point that the town of Goshen is not mitigating the traffic issue. They're just pushing it to another town. The idea behind this is a traffic mitigation, right? And if you're trying to make that left-hand turn, crossing traffic onto Musket, you're backing traffic up.
Oh,
you have
God, yeah.
The possibility of accidents, sightline distance, this is a real problem.
Yeah.
Now, instead, you take all of these trucks, and by all of these trucks, however many there are per hour, and I don't know off the top of my head, but you're making them, with all the other traffic, down 17M. You've got the traffic light at the Amy's Kitchen site, the River Road, and the transfer station, and now you have the next traffic light, and you are stacking these trucks up there, and now this truck has to make these 2 turns to the left, and then 1 turn to the right. Everything slows down, and you are pushing the problem somewhere else. I'd like to add that I think we all know that when you have the trucks coming down a hill during the summer, blacktop bituminous concrete is actually, it's not solid, it's a fluid, right? It's a plasma. And if you'll remember Maple Avenue coming down to Police Drive, and it gets washboarded every couple of years. And that happens because all the vehicles coming down and coming to a stop on the downhill. Well, now you're asking dump trucks and cement trucks to make this stop on this short road just before it makes a right onto 17M. I don't think that road's gonna last that long before it needs serious repair. So you're taking this problem from Musket Court and you're just moving it somewhere else. And in this case, we're moving it into another municipality. We're moving it to another town. And I can understand where Wayanda is put off by this. So for me personally, I heard this traffic mitigation plan. I can't believe anybody said it out loud. I think it's ridiculous. And I'm going to say so at a public hearing. But that is the traffic plan. The rest of the meeting is, again, this is this was a truck terminal, the piece of property, and they want to turn it into a cement plant. The SWIP has been completed, and it has been determined that there are no environmental impacts expected from runoff during construction or during operation. The construction-related runoff that is there will be mitigated by environmental conservation procedures. This is all in the EAF. Washout box. So when you're building a cement plant or any kind of thing, you have the cement trucks come in and they have to wash the trucks out. There will be a box that they will hire a company to come in and suck out the sludge and the unused cement and such. And that's how they're going to get the material off the property. They're not just gonna bury it there on the property. I like to hear that. The water supply is a well, it's on-site, and it's to be used for domestic water only. The water will be trucked in to make cement. We talked about that. The on-site water will be tested by the town. They're forcing them to do that. There will be a 10,000-gallon fuel depot on site. This is to fuel the vehicles. This will be a double-wall container. I didn't know this, but the double-wall container is what we've talked about before. It's a fuel tank inside a bathtub. That's considered the double-wall container. Neil knew that. I didn't know that. But that's, I think, important for an environmental point of view.
Is this buried or?
This will be at above ground.
Above ground, yeah.
Above ground is a double wall. The tree clearing will be done after November 1st due to the long-eared bat. Noise, odor, and light. The construction will be from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekends. And normal operating hours for the plant, once it's up and running, will be from 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the weekends. Now, this is in our town code. There's really nothing for us to say about that. There is going to be a fair share contribution from Ready Mix. They're going to put in, I want to say it's $10,000 or so. Yes, it's $10,000. This goes into the kitty for the town to put in these turning lanes once the,
I thought it was 25.
is it?
It is 25 for IWS, I think. I think it changes depending on
the
project,
applicant.
right?
Oh, okay,
So I believe this one
You
was,
could be right, you could,
just
whatever
that
the
there
number
will,
is.
and by that fair share contribution is determined by Mr. Canning.
but it was
When-
like 710 was the bond,
The
and the total thing was 735.
Okay.
okay.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're gonna put that in there, but for $25,000, I don't know how, or 10,000, I don't know how much you're gonna.
Well,
Yeah.
the thought is that you're gonna wait right, and everybody's gonna contribute along the way, we're gonna
Yeah.
have all these things built,
Yeah,
and I really question whether we're gonna get that. Certainly within it's never happened in the town, but in the village, there used to be a parking, fund, that if you didn't provide parking for your new commercial business,
you had it.
you had to contribute $1,500 to it. And I understand at this point in time, that money doesn't exist anymore.
It's gone in some place that.
We always find something else to use it for.
Yeah.
Okay, so my concern is that ultimately, this money's gonna disappear, and I don't mean stolen, I mean, it's
Yeah.
gonna be shifted to something else. And I am concerned about that, because I think at some point in time, I'd rather see some small incremental improvements made, rather than sit back waiting for the big thing.
Yeah, Hartley Road coming out there.
Yeah, there's a number of them there.
The lawyer had said that the EAF found that the project is incompatible with local land use plans and zoning regulations. And I believe this is because they will have to apply to the ZBA for a height variance on the silos. If you'll remember, there are 5 silos planned in the site. And I'll get to that. The applicant stated that they wanted to point out that our code exempts silos from the height requirement. And it does. But it says barns, comma, silos, comma. The applicant knew this full well, because he went on to say, the representative went on to say that that our code does not differentiate between ag and industrial. So yeah, man, you know it meant a barn silo. Went on to say that an ag silo has combustible material in it. And again, when we're thinking about height, we're thinking about the ability to get an aerial ladder up there, a fire truck to put something out if it catches on fire. And that the industrial silo will be full of cement that's completely non-flammable material. So that we understand, these silos will be 70 feet tall with a 5-foot bag, airbag on top of it, which it keeps the dust down. It's a dust bag. So when they're filling it or something, it keeps that.
So it's just
So-
slides on top of the pile.
That's the idea. When it's being filled, they didn't go into detail on that. But 75 feet high, to my mind, that's what it is. 75 feet high. In the industrial zone, the allowable height is 45 feet. So they want 75 feet. So they're going to go to ZBA for a variance even though they kind of think they don't need to, but they're going to anyway, which, okay. I do want to point out, right, that was the meeting, by the way, that's the, and this is all on the YouTube meeting if you wanted to check that out. A few things. When they talk about silo, they keep saying silo. They don't say silos plural. Do remember that this plan shows us 5 silos, right? And they are in a picture of dice, the die with the number 5, and the one in the middle. And so they don't say how wide the silos are going to be. So, to my mind, if I'm looking at 1, 2 silos with one in the middle, right? It's not one silo out there. It's a small building. So, because look at the width. You see that as one solid mass in the air, 75 feet high. When 45 is allowed in the industrial. This will be very visible from 17M coming from Middletown towards Goshen, right? Not only is it 75 feet high, but it's also on top of the hill, right? It's almost at the top of that ridge. I looked on the USGS survey maps, and the ground level at this site is 450 feet above sea level. Adding the 75 feet gives you a 525 foot above sea level, which means nothing until we realize that the mountain just behind is at its lowest point 555 feet. So you've got 30 feet. The mountain is, by the map, 30 feet higher than this silo. Okay. I haven't done the math yet in the geometry, but like my house is literally half a mile to this site, right? And the only thing that separates me from this site is this mountain ridge. Now, my house, now you take the second, I don't think I'll be able to see him from the front porch, but I'm pretty sure I'll see him from my second story window looking out.
Yeah.
Okay. So, my concern about a height variance is that I understand this is the industrial zone, and this is where I want industrial products to exist. I do. When you raise the height to 75 feet, you are bringing this industrial zone closer to the residential zone. And by that I mean, I don't know what kind of noise these silos make when they're, right? I don't know what kind of noise this dust collector makes at the top. I imagine some sort of fan going. So I have questions is what I'm saying. And I'm not a quick shutdown, but I'm a shutdown until I get more answers. If you were going to make noise, raise 75 feet in the air, that mountain really no longer protects the neighborhood behind. And by the neighborhood behind, right, you've got Laura Lane, Ruth Court, you've got Gates Schoolhouse Road, Howard Court, Rolling Ridge. Right there, there's 200 houses, 250 houses, right? And with all, dust is a concern, it's a cement plant, right? Anybody who's been past Dick's on Maple Avenue, every time I go past there, I hold my breath because all the dust and stuff that all the trucks have brought out, because the entire site is dust. That's what it is, it's the nature of the business.
Have to have lights on those silos for planes or
No,
not?
too low.
Too low?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we otherwise we'd always have them on all the cell towers. I think it's 200 feet.
No, okay.
Like
wait.
at 75 feet is not
Yeah,
big.
okay, good.
So just, for my opinion on the height of the silos, is that it's not one silo, it's multiple silos, and I consider it, from the view shed, from the point of how we're going to see it, it's a building. And it's a narrow building, 75 feet in the air, which, if you asked me for a building 75 feet in the air, I would say, no, that's not doable. The question then is, and it will be with the variance, is there another way for them to achieve this without going to 75 feet? To me, it would be, instead of 5 silos, get 10 silos. Now it's a question of cost versus benefit, which goes back to what we were just talking about. If it's a pre-existing, I gotta eat it. But it's not pre-existing, they wanna build from scratch. So build from scratch to our codes is my opinion, and it's been my opinion on everything. And I don't see that this is any different. I think that the traffic mitigation is, it's not practical, it's not enforceable, by the way. The truck's gonna make a left, who's gonna stop them? Nobody's gonna stop them. By the way, you're also coming down the hill and now making a left with a heavy truck, you're chewing that road up, right? 17M, although it's built like a commercial highway, it can only take so much.
Well, and these trucks are gonna be extremely heavy, well, once they're loaded.
Yes, you're talking heavy, heavy trucks. By the way, you know, they also, and I'm just talking about it now, they're talking about trucks going in, but they don't talk about trucks coming out.
That's the
I have
problem.
a bigger concern about that almost.
Cement truck coming out, making
Going up the
a,
hill, they can't go left because it's a sure accident.
right? So,
Yeah, It's gotta go right, and that thing is,
to your point, even if you could make the left, there's no traffic here, there's no traffic here, by some miracle you caught the lights, right?
yeah.
You make the left and you start down the hill, here comes traffic up over the top of the hill.
55 or whatever.
But you're almost better that way, because you're gonna start gaining speed going that way. Going the other way, you're not gonna make speed by the time you hit the light.
No, you are creeping up that hill.
Yep.
Once, planning, they actually issued a negative declaration to this project at the end of the meeting, pending Canning's approval of this traffic
Did
plan.
they even talk about making a right-hand lane out of there going
No.
to Goshen?
No, there was never talk of a lane going out. Come to think of it, I'm just thinking about it now,
Acceleration lane, there should be an acceleration lane there.
an acceleration lane, which
Yep.
they did not speak of. I think,
Because it's 55, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Through that section of,
Yep.
yes. And it's 55 and people go a whole lot faster, and it will be an absolute shame, cause a car versus cement truck, the car doesn't make it.
In my mind though, if the guy's coming out, he's loaded, he really has to time the lights, he has to look at that light down by whatever, and when that last car comes through, he's gotta go right away.
He does, and you know what, I don't mind doing that in my pickup truck, but I don't wanna do it in a cement truck. Hope is not a plan, John, hope is not a plan.
Hey, it works on for farmers. No.
We got that triangle. That makes it all safe.
Yeah, we gotta try
But
it.
it's-
Yeah, no, it's,
I agree with you, the whole thing. I think somehow or other, if that's gonna be traffic mitigation, then we have to go down and talk to Wayanda as to that, because I believe that road that we're gonna send them on to belongs to them. That little
does.
road. So and I know when she was here, she also was expressing some concern about whether or not that culvert on that road can handle the weight. Now, I thought I really thought at that point in time, that culvert was probably right on the town and town line.
it's right over the old.
Over the old Wallkill.
Which was the
Which I
boundary
thought,
line.
I thought was the boundary line. Now,
Yeah.
she seemed to think it all belonged to her.
Mhm.
But I don't know. But in any case, I think that should be determined that it's safe, number one, there. And then I think the other concern I have is the width of that road. Because there's a lot of pavement right there, but a lot of that pavement it's the apron to the building right there. So I don't know that you can start justifying any kind of truck traffic routinely using somebody's driveway to make the left-hand turn. So I think that before mitigation is accepted as that being good enough, there's a number of things that need to be discussed down there about that in the town of Wayanda. And then, as Chris said, I think going down to 17M. Because the other thing that was pointed out to us, and again, I didn't know this, I didn't catch it, that is a 2-lane road down to 17M. You're not allowed to make a left-hand turn into there, but you can make a right-hand turn into that road right there.
Really?
Yes, you can. And she said so, and I didn't believe it, and I went and checked. Like I said, I don't trust anybody's answers without verifying it usually.
Just to show, so this is Fisher Lane, right?
Yep.
This goes in here, so just beyond, this is that outdoor, that little road coming down.
Yeah.
So that's the town, but this part of the road out here,
Right.
as we know, that is way beyond,
Yep.
as is Lower Road, which I
Mhm.
believe is gonna be a county road.
I think that is.
So this part is, not, you guys got that, right? So it's not much, but what I'm saying is that the town's traffic mitigation
Man,
is including another town's roadway, even if it's a part of it.
Okay, and that road it's Denton Hill Road.
Denton, thank you, Denton Hill Road. So quite frankly, I don't know how the town of Goshen doesn't get sued. I don't know how the town of Wayanda doesn't say, no, you're not, it's one thing to have vehicles travel your town to get to businesses in another town. Okay, we all pay taxes to use the roads. But you're talking about a traffic mitigation procedure which says, go use that town's road as part of our town's business, and I don't,
It does happen sometimes, but,
okay.
I mean, it can happen, on the borders, but this is exceptionally different, or
I think so.
significantly different.
Well, you're not talking light traffic. You're
Right.
talking, very destructive road traffic. And I don't know those roads exactly, I know of them, but I don't look at them as designed for heavy trucks.
Yeah, and I think that for the most part, heavy trucks coming out on Lower Road, are gonna take Lower Road all the way out to 17M and make their turns. Most heavy trucks are not going to turn on Denton Hill.
Yeah, good too.
Nobody's gonna go on Denton Hill if they can help it, I think, with a truck.
No.
You gotta go out Lower Road all the way out. And she said at that point in time that Lower Road frequently backs up from the traffic light on 17M straight through the intersection
It's horrible.
at Denton Hill.
It's absolutely horrible. I was down there the other day, I couldn't believe it. And you're looking at traffic coming through Denton Hill, it's backed up Denton Hill, it's backed up Lower, all the way past Soons. Because
Yeah.
they're all waiting to get through the light.
She said it sometimes takes 3 traffic lights to get through.
It's bad.
Yes.
So what's the answer?
So I guess the other thing is that possibly, if we're also gonna suggest that as a mitigation, we should look at the level of service at those intersections. We've never studied the level of service in the neighboring town.
You know, what's interesting is Mr. Cannon did propose this, plan, and I've been in meetings and I don't recall him talking about that, the level of service at that.
At any of those, the level of service at the intersection with 17M and Lower Road and Denton Hill, and possibly even Lower Road where it comes out with Ridgebury and Soons.
Yeah,
The level of service at those should be looked at, and whether or not that makes any sense at all.
I don't know if it's been done. It's a question. I don't recall them talking about, he did talk about, traffic volumes on 17M through Goshen, but I don't recall him talking about,
No, I don't know.
could be
unless-
wrong.
The only person who may have ever looked at 17M and Lower or Gulf Links is probably Amy's Kitchen by their traffic study. But otherwise, I don't think anybody's ever looked at that. And so I think we also have to look at the whole ability of Denton Hill Road, including down there where it comes to 17M.
Instead of making the applicant putting in the left turn lane up to Musket Court, could there be a bond if there's damage to that road, you know, Denton Hill coming down there to fix that?
It's always the problem's gonna be what's the amount of the bond, number one, and then second thing is we're gonna fight about whether or not no, that damage is from everybody else too.
That's true, who
There's-
caused it, yeah.
There's another thing that you just triggered, I remember, there's a 1-year look back. So the town will look back after a year they're in service to see what the accident rate is at at Musket Court.
To see if the,
Right.
the left-hand turn.
But it was pointed out, there's no what if. So what if there's a higher accident rate? What then? Are we going to force the applicant to
Sit down.
pay the $730,000 to put a turning lane in? No. So my understanding is there's a 1-year look back, but there's no what if. And I think the only thing was that they would forfeit this $10,000 bond for the, it was very, very confusing, but there's no penalty to it. So there's a look back, but without any teeth, is my understanding.
So certainly it would seem like we should have a what if.
A what if?
Right, what if it doesn't work, or if, and I'm not sure accident rates are the only issue. A decrease in the level of service at intersections is just as frustrating or just as harmful from a community quality of life issue.
So that's the issue, is it's 750,000 to put in a left,
I believe that
to
was the
fix it
number.
appropriately?
That was the number, yes, to make a dedicated left-hand turning lane from 17M into Musket. The idea being you get over, the truck is in the turning lane while through traffic is passing on the right and waiting for that traffic to clear for the truck to make the left into Musket. This
So
was,
it's no light or anything, just widening.
that's right, just, there's no talk of a light. This was also suggested, for Cannon Hill Drive, which is the corner of where the, auto body shop is, where they're gonna put the 17M Flex building in down there, just before you get to the landfill. So, 17M is, it's, I was just looking at the traffic study for the updated, master plan, and it gets an F rating, it's just, it's a mess, it's an
Yeah.
absolute mess.
And the answer they have in the master plan is, more traffic lights,
Yeah, which, who's paying?
but we're gonna synchronize it.
Yeah.
It's all good if you're going in the right direction at that time of day.
So in the audience tonight, we have a few of our residents, and at this board, we usually invite comments from the audience. And if there isn't anything that hasn't been said, do you guys want to add anything?
I have a few. The supervisor from way yonder, I was at that meeting.
Uh-huh.
I believe she also said, might be Denton Hill has a weight limit on it.
A weight limit on Denton Hill.
All right, let's ask that question.
Is there any way for me to look that up online?
I don't know
Okay, thank you.
And the other thing is with the silos, Dick's Concrete, how high are their silos?
I went past the other day and I looked at it, and I'm a decent judge of height, and I think those silos, I thought were probably a good 60 feet. They're pretty tall. The key to those silos is that there is a considerable berm on Maple Avenue as you look towards the Dick site. Like, you really can't see into their site, because they've done a very good job. There's a berm and there's trees planted. So to see those silos, you really gotta slow down and look. But I did slow down and look, and I wanna say that I thought they were close to 55, 60 feet. They're much taller than I thought. They're also backed up against a hill, so you don't see them coming the other way. Great point, I thought the
So
same
they
thing.
need a minimum technically of about 50 or 60 feet.
I guess what we're probably gonna hear is that depends on the size of your plant and how much material you have to be there. And the reason they're going up, and the reason they wanna be up that high is because, for the most part, when they're filling their trucks, they wanna fill it by gravity. The trucks are actually pulling in underneath these silos, and they're opening up a chute, however they do it, and they just dump this much concrete, this much sand, this much aggregate, and it goes into the truck to be mixed on the way. And hence, that's the reason why they're going up that high. And I suppose the 75 feet is based on the expectation of sending out this many trucks a day filled with material, filled with concrete. I'm guessing. But certainly I know that's how they did it down. I went down to their place in Tuxedo, not Tuxedo, whatever it is down there.
Lewisburg? No.
Stokesburg, whatever, down in that area anyhow. Yeah. And I saw their plant there, and they did have silos there, and that's how they dealt with it there.
Do you know if they were 75-foot silos there?
No, I do not know they were 75 foot. I really just don't know.
I don't see also on this property, I was thinking of if there was any different elevation to the property, could they use that to their advantage, but there isn't. It's really, this property is flat as it is. I
think the part that goes up toward the hill, I think it goes higher over there. They're not gonna get any lower.
Well, where they want to build
It's
is
about the
absolutely flat.
Yeah,
And
it's about the lowest, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Good question, and I'm gonna look for those answers as well. I also wanna know, again, the dimensions of these silos, the width, what this is gonna look like overall in the
Sure.
width.
The visual impact is gonna be the big thing.
I have one other,
And,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have one other question on mulch mart. Where the culvert is, can't they put a pipe in there?
They
so
have a
that-
pipe.
So that they can cover that to put a sidewalk in?
They, unfortunately, what they did was, they have it actually, you can see, they have a culvert that goes from the ditch on Fisher Lane.
Mhm.
It goes underneath the driveway there, the first entrance, and it goes out to the ditch along 17M. At the upper side, away from 17M, where the culvert ends, is right in the ditch, and that's about 3 or 4, 5, maybe 5 feet off the road. So that's the problem where they're gonna have it. From there on is where they'll have a problem.
Okay.
And again, along 17M, the state won't allow anything to be built in that, what is a swale, that, for stormwater management.
But you're saying replace the culvert with a piping system?
Right, to put a pipe there and then you'd be
Yeah,
able
but
to.
I think we're saying that, I think the culvert, my understanding of culvert and pipe is the same thing. Isn't it?
Well, you can cover the pipe with the hole there, there's nothing to support it.
Yeah, that's a culvert.
So if you put, the pipe there,
No, there is a
then
pipe
you
there, I
can
think.
put something over
Johnny,
it
up here.
on 17.
No, not
I
at
see what you're
17.
saying.
17, if you were to put a pipe there at 17, we'd have all kinds of problems, it would never,
On
it would
17.
be jammed up. Here, this is a 16, an 18-inch pipe, what they have, what we're talking about, from the first entrance of theirs, all the way over to 17M, is an
Yeah, I
18-inch
think
pipe.
what she's talking about.
On
If
17,
I'm understanding.
Oh, she's talking about doing this?
Along the front of the property
Along
there,
the whole
you have to
way?
have a culvert to drain off the, so if I'm understanding her correctly, if you put a pipe there, and then, some street drains at the appropriate
Mhm.
spot, so that you could move that water out, then you can put a sidewalk over top.
And you could go over the top of the street drains. Yeah, I think theoretically you could, but usually you pipe that long, you have to have enough slope to it and everything, I don't know that you could.
Also, you gotta think about winter snow removal, the state is throwing snow into that culvert, if you flatten it out, it becomes, there's engineering that goes into it. Once again, the applicant told me that the state told him, you're not touching that. And so he just keeps it mowed so that the water keeps moving, because that's good for everybody, it's good for him.
So the distance there seems to be about 675 feet,
Wow.
yeah. That's the distance along 17M.
Was there anything else on Salamone that, any questions about? I think they, at the planning board meeting, they really drilled down on what the planning board wanted. My issues were the traffic plan, which to me it's a child's answer, right? I have to say something, so let's make up something even if it's fantastical, just that, hey, I satisfied you, I gave you a plan. I just don't see it as, it's not going to work in reality.
I think we don't know whether it could work in reality, and if it is a weight restricted road down there, we can't send trucks that are overweight under somebody else's weight restricted road. And I'm not sure our road can handle it either, I'm not sure that culvert can handle it, I'm not sure where we on this road can handle that. And we don't know whether those intersections can handle the extra traffic, particularly because trucks always turn slower than cars.
Always, and if they're doing it right, they're turning slower. Again, what I'm saying is that this traffic plan, they're calling it a mitigation plan. I don't think it actually mitigates a traffic problem, I think it just moves it somewhere else. That's not mitigation. You're just making a headache somewhere else. And as we said, the weight of the trucks and also the speed at which they move, this whole thing is bad. And I feel for the applicant because this is his business. If the applicant's business was ice cream stands and he built an ice cream stand in there, then nobody's gonna have a problem because cars move faster coming in and out, et cetera, et cetera. That's just not the case. The applicant is asking to build a cement plant with some of the slowest, heaviest, least maneuverable vehicles on the highways today. And secondly, the 75-foot silo, I think without any question, has to go to the zoning board of appeals for a variance. I don't see it as an ag silo, and especially that you're putting 5 together, the width, the height, all has to go to zoning, to the
So
zoning.
I think that certainly the question for the planning board is visual impact, and whether or not this has a visual impact because of that being a 5. And the question may also be ridgetop development, guy.
No, you can finish, I just have a question.
No, there's also a thing in the code we have about things cannot appear above the ridgetop. And I don't know whether coming from Middletown headed this direction, whether those new silos would be above the ridgetop that's behind it.
So
as far as visual thing.
The code you're speaking of is 9741 sub F. It says site buildings, so that they do not protrude above treetops or hills or crest lines of hills as seen from public places and public roads. So,
Right.
okay. This, by my calculations, you will, although the 75 feet will give us 30 feet below the ridge line. When you're looking at it from this angle going up, because you
I
pulled
agree.
it forward, it could look over the ridge line.
Sure, my question is basic, I think the first time you're gonna be able to look up from there is probably roughly around the Wallkill River.
Mhm.
So if you took a visual from the Wallkill River up through where this is gonna be,
Yep,
put the 75 feet in there and then use the ridge top behind it, the question is whether or not it protrudes or whether it's gonna comply with that.
I like that.
I think it's gotta be considered,
I think, listen,
it's
for
absolutely
everything,
critical.
for everything we made Millburn Solar do for visuals and such.
Well, it's not a matter of making them do it, it's a matter, it's a
It's the right
requirement
thing
of the
for
code,
them.
it's a requirement of the code.
Mhm.
Now, my question is, what are these silos gonna look like? Because when I'm driving down the road and I see a farm silo, for some reason, that's attractive.
Mhm.
Cement silos that I've seen look very industrial,
Mhm.
eyesore-ish, right? Is it possible to have if they have to stick up enough, to have them designed so you would believe that it's a,
The applicant said that they are willing to paint the silos green to blend in with the background. They did not say how wide they're going to be, they did not say what they're going to look like. They said that they'd be willing to paint them green. If you're talking about paint them white and put a dome over the top and make it look like a barn silo,
I think most barn silos right now are blue, aren't they?
yeah, that's true, right?
Harvest stores, yeah.
Harvest stores, right?
but you know what I'm saying? I mean, if you
Yeah.
drive by and you see, to me, silos are
Mhm.
kind of quaint and.
And so I think even if we were to consider the fact that this might be in compliance otherwise, or get the variance, think certainly the idea of painting it and making it look like a barn silo, and I really do think that we're not gonna make them disappear with green into the
No.
trees behind it. We might make it look like a barn silo if we make it,
A little-
farmer store
just
blue,
a-
whatever that is.
A little ornamental
Yeah.
design. Did I say that right? I don't think I did.
No, you did, I got it.
Actually, you know, that would go good with you have the blue, because Harvest Store used to always charge extra for the American flag on it too.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it is, you had to buy a special American flag piece of metal for that.
Oh, man, I thought that was standard. I said
No,
that over. All right,
That's why
No, I got
most
a
of them don't have
question.
it, yeah.
John.
I was coming down 17M last week, and it was a tractor trailer trying to turn into 2669 17M. He couldn't make it, so he had traffic backed up in both directions. He was going in the direction toward Goshen.
Yeah, and he
Had
backed
to
up.
back up and then pull in. So it was backed up, it was a little bit of a backup. I actually took pictures of it.
Mhm.
I got it as he was there. But then as everybody started going, it was a truck sitting in the other direction, couple cars back from this waiting. And as traffic started going, he just dived in and made the turn in there in front of everybody where we all had to hit our brakes because he didn't feel like waiting either.
Mhm.
I mean, I took pictures of it and stuff, but it was kind of ridiculous, like even coming towards, like they want everybody to come down 17M towards Goshen. This tractor trailer didn't swing out enough to make the turn, so he ended up backing out and holding
Yeah.
everybody up.
I must have been there the same time as you were, or there was two of them.
Yeah.
I saw that, one like that anyhow.
And that's what I'm talking about, what looks like it's doable on paper just doesn't translate to real world
Mhm.
practical use. I don't see that this traffic plan is really gonna mitigate the problems of this,
Yeah.
this applicant's, use of the property. That said, all we can do is an advise, so that's
Now,
everything I
at
have.
one point in time, there was a discussion about having somebody, and possibly the applicant, bring up a tractor, not a tractor, a triaxle or whatever, or a dump truck that would weigh roughly the same as a loaded concrete truck, and pull out of there and see how much, and make a right-hand turn, to see what it would take. How fast could he get by the top of the hill? And what's it gonna take him time-wise? Because I think that if I was down by the Wallkill River, and he was just pulling out, I think I'd catch him by the traffic.
I'm gonna say, I don't think I actually need a real world test to know that it's not gonna move.
I think that's why we didn't get it.
Yeah,
But I think certainly our traffic consultant has to consider that.
I don't, how do you even maintain that speed limit at 55? It seems unsafe for everybody, if you've got trucks pulling out into
Mhm.
it.
it's just so unfortunate that, in my opinion, it's the wrong plan for that site. And because of the unique properties of where it is, it's on a hill, it's in the traffic area. I hate that it's actually where, I want it in the industrial zone, you gotta come up with this traffic mitigation plan just doesn't, it's not not feasible.
Or needs further consideration.
It needs a turning lane, Neil, that's what it needs.
No, I think so too, but however, if we're gonna consider this further, the traffic consultant needs to look at all those issues down there at the, where we're gonna turn around,
Uh-huh.
whether or not those roads can handle, whether or not they are in fact posted for, reduced to lower rate, weights. Okay,
That's everything I had on Salvo.
anybody else ceremony? Okay, town comprehensive plan. Everybody had a chance to look at it some or not, or?
I had a chance to look at it some, you got a hard copy?
They had one for me.
I don't rate at all.
No, I didn't think I was gonna
Nothing to
get.
do with that.
No, she did not, she had nothing to do with it, she did, Mary, I called up Mary and said, Mary, I need you to make me a hard copy of this, because I can't do it all. on the
Wait, you
computer."
can do that?
No, I was.
I didn't know that was a thing. I
No,
can
I
call
was
and
gonna-
ask for a hard copy.
I was gonna do it, and she said, you're entitled to it, and she said, in fact, I have one extra one here. So otherwise, I was gonna pay for it, look, it's 120 pages, 225 cents a page, and I'll pay my $30.
I'm reading this thing on my iPad. You're
I-
in here like a king.
No,
Oh
I'm
man.
not. Well, you know, I keep getting the highlighter on the computer.
On the screen. Okay,
No, go ahead.
I did have a chance to read through some, but not nearly, and I got it, and tomorrow is the public hearing.
Tomorrow's some public hearings.
I am,
It is?
Yeah,
It
there's a
is.
public hearing on it tomorrow.
They're gonna
Um,
extend that hopefully.
I don't know what they're gonna do.
That's,
well,
Go ahead.
it has been available online for near a month now.
oh shit.
Yeah, and I love diving into this stuff, and I just got busy. I will say that, and there's a lot to digest there. I think that the committee did a fantastic job on looking at the water aquifers, the surface water. I think they hit the high points. For me, the part that really got me excited was on page 24. They're talking about increased vegetative buffers between traditional fulfillment distribution warehouses and residential buildings to 500 feet. My understanding is that it's currently 100 feet, and they're talking expanding that to 500 feet, if I got those numbers right. That is a much more reasonable distance from a warehouse to a residential area.
Yeah.
I think they should also be wooded, et cetera, et cetera. The second thing is, on warehouses, they want to make the finished grade along the front facade a maximum of 30 feet. This is fantastic. To my mind, this is really, look, these monster warehouses that they all want to, they just don't fit in our town. And the bigger you make them, the more trucks they bring in, the more traffic, the more noise pollution, air pollution. Not to mention that, of course, they all get pilot programs, so all we get is the headache and not the money. But I like that. I also like, this is the one, maximum building footprint to 80,000 square feet. The current code says 200,000 square feet. Now, there are 2 RDM warehouses in the pipeline right now on 17M. They had the first iteration, they were 300,000 or some square feet. They came back smaller at 200,000 square feet. And the reason they did it is because I really believe they didn't want to face a ZBA variance request. So shrinking this down, the maximum building footprint to 80,000 square feet, do keep in mind, this doesn't mean that we won't get a 200,000 or 300,000 square foot building. What it means is that the town has more control over the things that are going on in our town. That is to say, if you want larger than 80,000 square feet, you're going to be sent to the ZBA. And the ZBA is going to approve or deny a variance. And you will have to show need for that variance. So I applaud the committee for including this part. I'm the no warehouse guy, so then again, you know what? I haven't met anybody in the town of Goshen that said, oh, I can't wait for warehouses. So I say I'm the no warehouse guy, but I think we're all kind of no warehouse guys because nobody's really been happy about it unless you've
And
really
it's
got to
not
build
gonna
a
really
warehouse.
provide jobs to very, very few people in the town of Goshen. It's
This-
gonna have to come from someplace else where
Absolutely.
they can afford to live.
Now, let me just move on to one thing that I did not see in here. There was, I believe, a slight talk of tech. They're talking about tech institutions or tech buildings. What I did not see in there, forgive me if I'm wrong, and I will read about it tomorrow, but I'm reading a lot about AI data centers. AI data centers are massive. I'm talking the size of a town. They're building these things out west, that, the one in Utah that was just pushed through, it is the size of Manhattan. This is what we're talking about. And they suck up so much electricity that it actually raises the rates to the electrical users, everyone around,
For a big distance too.
for a long distance.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if they don't have enough electricity coming in, they run their own basically electric plants. And I've seen them where you have tractor trailers, and inside the trailer is a diesel generator. It's just a portable electric, and you have them side by side lined up.
All the time.
So they're just, and the thing is, these data centers make so much money, they don't care about the cost of diesel, and they just keep fueling the thing up. And these things just keep spewing the diesel in the air, and the noise is, you can't live anywhere near them. Now, I
To be
have.
fair, some of them are gas turbine,
Sure. They
which
can
are
be
cleaner, but that concentrated in an area?
Yeah.
I mean, I used to be in power,
Mhm.
and when we installed new stuff, we had to watch the cloud at startup until we came into compliance and stuff. They can, anyway.
Well, now you used to be in power.
Yeah.
I don't know if this kind of power. I did have a conversation with Supervisor Vetro and asking about AI data centers. And he said, Chris, I'll stop you right there. And he says, I've talked to O&R, and they tell me that we will not have the infrastructure for that kind of a data center for another 30 years. That is to say, the power lines, it's the transmission lines that are necessary. Now, I take the supervisor's word, and he's quite savvy about these things. He talks to people all day long about these types of things. Now, since we're not going to be able to support one of these AI data centers for the next 30 years, I see absolutely no reason not to just ban them right now. A town-wide ban on AI data centers. Look, if they can't happen here anyway, what's the harm in paying our town lawyer to write a law that says no AI data centers in the town? Because I've never heard a good thing about them. And they do increase the electric rates, they do bring noise, they do bring pollution.
And water consumption.
Water, yes.
Not only do they consume water, they need fresh water. You can't even use like gray water because it needs to be fresh, otherwise it comes up the system, they need it for
They have to
cooling.
clean it up, which is,
Yeah.
you know, the return rates on that can be 50%,
Right.
that you throw away.
And then the water that they're discharging is not potable water. So it's garbage, it's beautiful water going in, it's garbage coming out. And I mean, my concern was the new proposed commercial water district on 17M, the Amy's Kitchen Transportation Corporation. It is not I say it's an unlimited water source. It's not unlimited. It comes out of the Middletown aquifers, but it is a municipal water source. That was my concern with the AI data centers. Once again, the supervisor says it's not going to happen because, to which I say, okay, I would like an extra layer of protection in our comprehensive plan that says no AI data centers because, and by the way, if they can't happen here anyway, why not just put it into a law? That's my 2 cents. I love the warehouse stuff that they put in there, and I do like that the plan did take a look at our environment in detail. It did. It looked at transportation. It looked at our water sources, our water tables. I think it was very good, but I'll have more to say tomorrow at the meeting because I can only so many hours in a day.
Do they say about housing or housing density or whatever?
They talk about having multiple types of housing, whatever, but we're appropriate, but they don't talk about any changes for that.
No changes, but it's important that there's housing and affordable housing.
They don't say affordable. I don't think they don't really say workforce, but that there be a diversity of housing.
That's what they said, diversity of housing. I didn't know exactly what that meant.
And I don't think that I think it's thrown up there to sound.
Okay.
It
Whatever.
sounds good, it sounds like we're hitting housing at every level.
This is my
Right.
job tomorrow, is reading this 120
I
pages?
think it's about 120, yes. No, it's not, it's 190, 200%. I'm not 280.
I'm hoping there's pictures, Neil, you're killing me,
No,
man.
there's not a whole bunch of pictures.
Lake space, lots of lake.
Figure on 200.
One mile.
200 pages, okay.
Is there a red line copy of what they
No,
changed? from-
no, actually, this whole thing is considered a change.
Don't think-
Now, is
This
this
is-
proposal?
This is proposed.
And they call this an updated master plan, but I agree with you, it's encompassing.
But it is not, I don't think it's a replacement, only because there's a lot missing, I think. And I do very much like this, and there's so much I like about it. There's some later on that gives me kind of knot in my stomach, but for the most part, I really like some of the stuff that's in there. One of the things that it says, and we have to understand this too, is that, I'm gonna say this. One thing is that the comprehensive plan is not new law. And in fact, at one point in here, they say, this is not, just because we put it in here, does not make it law. The laws have to change to fit this now. However, on page 2, just before 1.2, it says that, for this reason, Town of Goshen has undertaken a comprehensive plan and revisions to the zoning law simultaneously. Now, I don't see any zoning laws in here at all, so I don't know whether to believe that and say, shoot, I didn't get all of it, or whether or not I think it's that it wasn't done that way.
Well, on page 24,
Yep.
3.2.3 zoning, that's where I was reading the warehouse information. Now, in order for this to make any sense,
Yep.
the laws have to change.
Right, I agree. So,
Okay, so I think that's what I will say at tomorrow night's meeting, is to say there's no reason not to change this law before you accept you can accept the comprehensive
No,
plan.
the comprehensive plan really should be adopted before you change the zoning codes.
Well,
However,
then let's get that done as soon as possible.
well, and so, there's other things, I think that if you change this part of the code, but don't change that part, it kind of scares me, so it almost needs to be done altogether. Now, let's go on page 2 also, the very last sentence or whatever. It's the town structure and supporting diversity of its economic base, including attractive tourism and recreation-related businesses and high-tech industry at locations that can accommodate such uses. Now, I believe that I read in Pennsylvania, down around Philadelphia, Microsoft is gonna go in one of these big centers, and they're gonna resurrect 3 Mile Island,
Yes,
the nuclear plant that failed many years ago.
my understanding is that's being restarted.
I think so, Dan. I think
Yeah.
Microsoft is paying for that.
Yeah.
Talk about providing your own electricity.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we cannot assume that there will not be the infrastructure available from O&R, because with the right amount of money, I can make a new O&R for my project.
Well, and that's, when you said that Joe said, I'm sorry, you said it, that we don't have the infrastructure, but that's, a lot of places don't have the infrastructure, and that's why they bring the power on the site.
Yeah.
These huge sites surrounded by power plants,
Mm-hmm.
and the data center in the center,
Yep.
you know, they're not drawing a lot of power off the
No,
grid.
in fact, the
It
project
doesn't-
almost nothing, it's all their own. In fact, Doug Bloomfield used to talk about DuPont being down in, I think, Delaware, where they had 300 acres and they had their own power plant, period.
Yeah,
They didn't need anything from the community on that.
yeah, if they find a site and they think they can get the water and build on it,
Yeah.
it's just dollars for what they
Sure.
get back.
So I kind of scares me a little bit saying that we're gonna, high-tech industries sure sound like data center to me.
Yeah.
Or
Well-
potentially
Well, I
data
mean,
center.
and they do provide high-tech jobs.
Mhm.
It's just all the other stuff that comes with it.
Yep, and I think you're right, the other, and the thing you can't get around is the water usage.
Yeah.
You know, you can get away, do your own plant, but you can't get away with produce your own water.
Yeah, that brings up some other question, but.
Go ahead.
Well, it's more theoretical, just like, do we know what kind of aquifers we have and how much water is actually in our ground? And how much is replaced generally over every year?
Okay, and we had a study from the past that covered that relatively good, and in fact, if you look at our zoning code, we have the different watersheds, which there's many different watersheds within the town.
Right across it.
And then, but then when you go back into our proposed, or our new water study, it's talks a little bit differently. And that's the part somewhat that gives me some concern is the water usage there and how we test and what we're gonna test and everything else there. It appears as though we're going to do a lot lower level testing than before. We used to test it 2.5 times the proposed water usage. So if you're gonna use 20,000 gallons a day for your subdivision, you test at 50,000 gallons a day, and then you do your pump test based on that. We seem to be saying, no, we're not gonna do that now, we're gonna test at just the 20,000 gallons. And the reason we used to do it at 2.5 was because the feeling was that every so often we have a drought, and every so often when we do have that drought, we still have to continue to provide water for people or for industries or whatever.
And usually water usage goes up.
Right, and so, but they don't seem to recognize that. The other interesting thing was that, and it doesn't say in here where they're pulling this number from, but they're claiming that the average rainfall in Orange County has gone up, I'm gonna say 4 or 5 inches a year. Now, I can believe that maybe the last few years or for a short period of time, we had more water on an average for that period of time. Depending on how far back you studied it, to change by 5 inches takes a very significant change. I don't know where that number came from. There's nothing in the potable water study that's in here that indicates where they pulled that number out of or how they achieved that number. They also say that the other way to consider recharge is to consider septic systems, because they're claiming that virtually all water in the septic system goes into the ground or goes back into the ground. Well, that's not new water though. You're not producing new water, so it's not like rainwater is new water. Septic system is not a new water, number one. Number two is there is always a percentage, and it's either somewhere between 5 and 20% of the water comes out of the ground and evaporates. We can witness that a lot of times during the summer when you see your septic system and you see the lines.
Yeah.
The nice green grass on your front lawn, that's the septic system, and you get out from that area and it's just brown now. So some of it's coming out, and it's by design, it's supposed to be aerobic. And so I don't know how they get into that. They do talk, some of the stuff that's really good is they talk about encouraging more recharge or getting more recharge. And that's great, except they don't go into what that is. I would love to see that, and I think it makes a bunch of sense, and we have had those kind of conversations, but I've seen nothing on it. The other thing they don't discuss is the loss of water when I go to a sewer system. When I go to a sewer system now, there is no recharge from the septic systems.
The neighborhood I'm in is on the sewer system.
Right, so that's going right now. It's going to the Walker River directly. Well, through the sewer plant to get there, but yeah. So that's being exported, and so is Ham Park, and so is Arcadia, so is the entire village, which comes out of our watershed in the town. So yeah, if you go into sewer systems, you're now exporting all that water, and there is no recharge, and there's no discussion here about taking that into account. If you approve a new subdivision or a new project, say we went to Goshen Hospitality, and we take their 40,000 gallons a day, and we just put it into a sewer plant, that just goes right out. Anything like that, anywhere we do anything like that, and there is no discussion about that anywhere.
It seems like the system should be designed to return that water. If you're using it, recycle it.
You could certainly. We don't do it yet here because we're not that desperate, or we don't think we're that desperate yet.
Well, I guess I'm from the West Coast where
Sure, we
we're
had
taking large amounts of water from aquifers that have been there for millions a year, and everybody just turns their back on it because to talk about it is
Sure, and you go to California and they're taking water out of the Colorado River 2 states away.
yes, and we take it from Northern California.
Yeah. So yeah.
No, you can't have it back.
Yeah. So the other thing is the whole stormwater thing. When we keep on adding impervious surface and everything else like that, we know that by design you can't run stormwater off the property faster than it did before. But nothing says anywhere that you can't run more water off the site than it did before. It just can't go down any faster. So if I have a rainfall event, and I have 100,000 gallons, and my normal flow is 25,000 gallons a day, I can't go more than 25,000 gallons, but I can do it over 4 days now, in which case, I now have lost 100,000 gallons instead of 25,000 gallons, in which case, my infiltration has been reduced. So I now have a negative thing on my recharge, based on just the lack of stormwater going back into the ground. And, but there, again, there's no discussion on that either. Okay, the other thing that we can talk about here, and we've had it in the old stuff, is the greatest density, or actually, the other way to get a good producing well is to go by fraction traces. And they say where fraction traces are, but there's nothing in here showing where fraction traces are, which would be helpful. There is some old stuff that I have from the county and that shows fraction traces, but it should probably be in here. I don't know, everybody's still awake?
I was gonna say, like, so I definitely haven't had the time to
Yeah.
really, I have to redo this thing tomorrow because the meeting's not up on
Yeah.
it, but I can't imagine, they're not approving this thing tomorrow. I think we've got some time to, do we have another month to?
I don't know how fast they wanna move on it, I really don't.
Okay.
I would love for them to have more time. Everything folded over here is spots I marked. Okay, and some is on the traffic study too. The traffic study, I think, is really good. Some of the interesting thing, what's the worst intersection in accident-wise?
Accident-wise?
Yeah.
But I think, what, Houston and 17A?
No.
No? Oh, how about 17M and police?
No.
County building over there?
Actually, police, yeah, you're right, that is the one.
That is
It is 17M and the police and 6.5 Station Road.
Station Road.
That is the worst by far. I think it's almost twice as bad as any other intersection.
That intersection should be rebuilt completely.
It's 14 accidents in 3 years, roughly 4.7 accidents a year.
High-speed accidents too.
So what's the best intersection in town? There's a
My driveway.
My driveway.
I've never had an accident there.
I throw a ball out there for it.
What's the best one?
What'd you say?
So he just jinxed himself.
But it looks good that way. Actually, the best intersection of all is the Legoland roundabout. 0 accidents in 3 years.
All right, and that's got
That, and
plenty of traffic.
there
There's
is no
volume
one,
there.
there is no other one there. Nothing else comes out near 0. Yes, there is. It's below 1, but I was surprised at that. It was interesting.
I don't know if it's in there, but did you see the proposed roundabouts coming off of, let's see, shoot, I'm just dropping the name on it, the road that Burger King is on, it's not close.
Oh,
It's,
yeah, okay, yeah, you know, right there.
Bradfield.
To go, where's that roundabout supposed to be?
So at the end, their traffic plan is for a roundabout,
Where the exit comes off?
they're gonna rebuild the exit.
Who gave you that? This DOT did that?
I know people.
I've never, no, because I've seen all kinds of plans for that. I've seen 2 or 3 of them, but
I'll bring you what I got tomorrow night. But
the roundabout sounds like it may be interesting.
a roundabout and changing that under, when they go under 17M onto,
Yeah.
also coming up
They're supposed to
Hatfield,
be.
coming up Hatfield, where it tees off into police.
Yeah,
Roundabout there, so that you can go straight
go straight up to
to
17M.
17M and back.
And that would be, at one point, there was a traffic light there where it went out to the new Kettle.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're supposed to have 17M coming under the underpass, under 17, so it would be in both directions there, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of, and it's not in this plan, again, I didn't get to the end of it.
It used to be.
No, it's not.
No.
What's that?
No, it's not in there. They talk about having diagrams and that, but there are no
It used to be
diagrams.
two.
Maybe Mary just didn't.
She didn't give it to me,
She
right?
didn't give me the, she went
She
cheap on
abridged
it.
version.
Yeah.
You used to be able to get on there.
I do think that, I need some more time on it.
If you
I'll-
go
yeah.
down,
I'll get to it, but.
okay.
Okay, so there is a
But
bunch of
that's
stuff in there.
another thing
Uh,
for
I will try to get it written up somewhat for tomorrow night.
Cannon Drive
So if they adopt this, then
They,
they're gonna go through all the zoning changes or?
they have to then do the zoning change. I really think that it's relatively
and Smith.
little to be done as far as
Take that block there.
environmental review for this, because nothing actually changes. Okay, things change, and the fact that there is a section where they have things that have to happen.
Good, okay.
Okay, and I think that is where we start to see. Here, I think it's roughly at page, starts at page 27 maybe? On page 27 it starts, and they'd say, priority, ongoing policies, and then who has to do it? Zoning amendment, town board and planning board, for residential development. So there's a number of things back there where things have to happen.
There's a bit of work here.
Oh, there's a lot of work. As I said, except for that part on page 2 where it says they're gonna do it at the same time, I think they're really not, and I think they intentionally did not. I think that was left in there by mistake. Because I think once they get through this, once they adopt this, they're gonna have to do a bunch of changes. And the
So,
question is, at
If
what
this is
speed?
adopted,
Not
it
the
takes,
water source. This is
I
the
hope it
surface
doesn't take a
water
year to
source.
do the zoning changes.
Oh, well, it depends on how fast they go through it, yes. I think if you look at all the zoning amendments,
Yeah,
it's gonna be a lot of writing for a attorney.
so then anybody that's
I think
in the
I saw this.
pipeline is gonna have to go by the whole thing then before the.
Anybody in the pipeline is gonna have to go forward, and it's gonna be a question of when if the town board grants them, if they grant them the ability to still go through
Hmm,
under the existing code, or whether they have to wait for
Yeah.
this. In the past, when they've done that, they've said anybody with a pre-approval can use that approval.
but not everybody uses it.
But not everybody has the approval. But I don't know, this town board may say, anybody who has an application in can continue under the old code.
This is the,
It's up to them.
this shows,
Hmm.
stream corridor, floodplain.
A lot of work to be done yet, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done.
Do they change much on agriculture or anything like that?
They,
Just as we like open space?
yeah, they don't really do much about agriculture. We're all for it, we support it, we wanna keep it, but we're not gonna do anything about it.
You're on your own.
Yeah,
I don't know why it took him a year, and Neil had his thumbs up in that.
As far as the agriculture part, I do. I pretty much. What would make sense, and I think it needs to be addressed, is to preserve agriculture, and some farmers aren't gonna like it, but we should not have solar farms or solar systems on farmland. Am I against solar? No, but I think solar can be reasonably done on gray
Buildings
sites.
or whatever, yeah.
Buildings, gray sites, whatever, our stuff that's already been taken out of farming. Big parking lots should be done. Some buildings should be built with it.
I think every one of these huge warehouses that they're putting in ought to be solar farms on top. It's
Yeah.
already ruined, so.
I thought that at Signs of the Soul, with that huge pavilion there,
Yeah.
that whole thing should have been done.
Yeah.
I don't know why they didn't do it.
If you make it a requirement, they design the roof to take the pressure or.
Yeah,
So, on the comprehensive plan, tomorrow night is the public hearing.
yep,
We're going to hear from the public. I'm sure I'm going to learn something there, may hear something from the board. If the board does not act in the next 30 days,
we will have this back again.
can we, it'll give us all time to really look at it, and maybe make any recommendations we think to the
Sure.
town board.
Yep.
Uh,
And I think we have two different things. I think we have, I don't know, we may wanna say we think they should add this and look at this further. But otherwise, I mean, a lot of stuff is really, really good. I have a few concerns, but.
And I will say that this 116-page report, I don't think we can possibly do this justice. If the town board wanted ERB input, we would really need a meeting just on this.
Yeah.
And everybody's gotta study this thing for a week, come together, and then put together a plan, if the town board is asking for our input. But I don't think we've had that official request, and if they want to though, we just need, and if that means a special meeting, I'm available, I don't know if anybody else.
I will see what we can get, whatever, but,
Okay.
yeah, certainly I have, 1, 2, 3, look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have at least 12 where they say they have to, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I see 19 places where they say it has to be a zoning amendment.
Okay. So listen, if you're gonna talk tomorrow night, remember, tight 5, Neil. You need a tight 5. Tight 5 minutes, get your point across, get in, get out. Don't lose the room.
I understand, and then don't bang on the table. Whatever it is. I have heard that many times. Okay?
I'm good.
No, but just quick
Go ahead.
question, going forward, not only this, but they talked about, the height on the warehouses and things like that. Is there any kind of progress being made or whatever, or?
On the
this?
current, on the
No,
current.
well, on that, but then you have a couple of these things, the RDMs that are in the
They're in the pipeline.
pipeline, yeah.
RDO has three right now. 2602 is approved, it's being built. That's the big lot that's,
Which is no longer theirs. Right.
right, it's across from BMG. It's no longer there, but it goes to the same.
Yeah, I
place,
do
so,
too, yeah.
Okay, the other two are on the other side of the street. They're on the board paving side.
Yeah, yeah.
And they put together a plan, they changed that plan a year later, and we've not heard from them since. My understanding is I'm saying they're waiting for the water. They're waiting for the water district to come through. Supervisor Betro had said, no, they can drill wells. I don't know, I might disagree with him on that, but I can tell you that they have not come back to planning or zoning. They haven't come to a board meeting. I don't know if they've been in with Mr. Leva, but I know that they have not come to any public meetings. It just kind of stopped.
If they were waiting for water, would they change what they're gonna build, I mean?
You know, that's the question,
The
right?
question is whether they have to or not, because if they have to have a well, then they probably have to have a septic, in which case now the same plan has to take some changes, possibly. So there's a bunch of them like that. There's also Goshen Hospitality, there's a number of them
Yeah,
there
yeah, yeah.
Goshen
that
Hospitality.
are just kind of sitting there.
Dunkin' Donuts is still in there,
Really, they're still fighting?
waiting on water. But, and, okay, so what I'm saying is, I don't know, but it's a good question. It's a question that everyone, on Rolling Ridge, Howard Court, Laura and Ruth Court have been asking. We all wanna know.
Yeah.
And so far, they came in hot and heavy, they backed out, then they came in with another plan. These warehouses were smaller, but closer to the neighborhoods, and they never even came to talk about those at the, so it's a mystery,
And so the question going forward is, there's these proposed changes, or not proposed changes, these are not proposed changes, these are
Yeah.
proposed master plan that indicates a number of things, of which none of them have any standing as far as being enforceable.
you mean
The proposed, the idea there should be only 30-foot high
Yeah.
and 80,000 square feet. That's not, if this is passed, that's not law. The law is still 200,000 square feet and 40-foot high, whatever.
Now, at this point though, if the town board were to decide to make a local law, change that zoning today, to my mind, the builder, RDM, has not met those thresholds to say, hey, we're grandfathered in. They purchased the property, but that's not a threshold.
Yeah.
So they haven't built a road, they haven't.
They haven't completed seeker. They haven't
Right.
completed seeker.
There are certain thresholds they have to pass to say that they have a vested rights, that they
There's
put money in.
certainly an area for discussing that or legally fighting that as to whether or not they're vested, have they spent enough money that you're taking something away from them otherwise.
One thing's for sure, I'm watching every day.
Okay. Anyhow, that is a
We need
question.
somebody to
But
enforce
so
the
the
law.
town board's gonna decide, even with the solar thing with that, they were passing about whether or not solar can go forward.
Right.
They can decide who in the pipeline is gonna be allowed to go forward and who can't. And I don't know how this board's gonna do it. But this board certainly has the ability to make that decision.
Good. Well, Mr.
We didn't have much on the agenda, but it was
I
emergent
said,
tonight. We
we're
got a
gonna go
lot.
through it, and we're gonna spend much time on a comprehensive plan, I said.
Yeah, well, we,
Boy, was I wrong, huh?
I'm sorry, did I have too much? I had too much to say, sorry.
No, I think we covered good. Anything else, anybody?
Not for me.
Thank you very much.
Thank